New Democracy did win the election with 28%, and that percentage is higher than the total tally of the second and the third parties. So we still remain the dominant political force in Greece. So one should take into consideration the fact that these elections took place a year after a double national election, so there was significant electoral fatigue. We actually had a significantly lower turnout than the rest of the European Union, at around 40%. But I'm sure there was also, some degree of discontent with issues such as the cost of living, which we need to address. We've been elected to implement an aggressive reform program for the remaining 3 years of our term, and this is what we should do. We now have 3 years without any other elections, and we will be judged again on our performance in 2027. But I think we sort of went against a trend where incumbents in many other important European countries actually suffered heavy losses. We avoided that, and we're still the dominant political force in Greece.
Well, indeed, and we look to France, of course, for the reaction there. Marine Le Pen and the risks there, and the decision by the French president to call that surprise parliamentary vote, and of course the gains of the AfD in Germany as well. What do you make? What is your interpretation of the shift to some of those right-wing parties across the Eurozone, whether it's a protest vote or there is something more substantial going on here?
Well, first of all, Tom, if you look at the total numbers, the EPP, the main centre-right European party, actually increased its numbers of Euro MPs. And the main sort of coalition between the EPP, the Socialists and the Liberals that has essentially governed Europe over the past decades remains the dominant coalition in the European Parliament. So I would argue that the European centre held, maybe stronger than many people expected, and that this right-wing surge did actually take place in the two most important countries in Europe, but not across the entire continent. So I think there is maybe some degree of over-exaggeration about this right-wing shift of the European sort of continent as a whole. If you look at the numbers in the European Parliament, I think the important decisions will continue to be made by the three political families. And of course, nothing, I need to point out, nothing can happen without the EPP, which essentially has sort of a blocking minority now in the European Parliament. So I think all in all, the results were probably slightly better than many people expected. And I do think that there is a momentum to drive through important changes in Europe for the next 5 years.